Microphone up close.
Webcam
Yep.
microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
See, but I have the files. You know, I read the stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, that guy, how can that be possible? You know, pistols and fondle slab of choice, I don't know when that was, doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the cartoon comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't, it's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to just read two sources together whenever I try to prove out one. You know, it's not a surprise. You expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to sadly disappoint on another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty, dirty old man, huh?
Really? Can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions, eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2, within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America. We bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original.
We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for
That's that.
for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
And that is that. It is Saturday night. I'm apparently live. It's UCY.TV radio. This is the Ochelli Effect. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli, and guess what? We're going to do something odd tonight. But don't I do that every time I seem to take over these little airwaves and stuff, and thank you for everybody who has tuned in on your TuneIn app, anybody who has gone to ucy.tv/TOE, anybody out there who happens to catch this later on YouTube, I thank you for any sort of attention that you give to the subjects that I try to make presentations about. Tired. Anyway, what am I going to do tonight? Well, Daniel Lewis Crumpton is going to join me and some other guests as well. We're definitely going to have some interesting conversation here regarding some developments there in Georgia. We shall see exactly what comes together here. We're going to wing it a bit. I know we're going to wind up discussing the police state. I know we're going to wind up discussing the actual Patriot movement as it stands, a few other aspects. Let's just say, I'm a little bit confused because I'll tell you, there's been a lot of viewpoints put out, regarding what has been going on, vis-a-vis this case in New York City. Obviously, the Garner case and all that. There's been a lot said about it. There's been a lot spoken about regarding race, etc., etc. I've got a little bit of air from you, Daniel, but I do hear you, sir. How are you tonight?
How's it going, Chuck, man? It's nice to talk to you people in a different dimension.
It's, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Look, interdimensional travel and discussion is something that we need to encourage. But enough of the private jokes. Man, oh man. Look, I was just trying to explain that we're going to discuss kind of a wide range of things tonight. We're definitely going to focus on the police state a bit. We're going to have a few other things to say, but realistically, sir, I've kind of left this sort of up to you as to what we're going to present piece by piece. I know that the other guys from ZenInTheCar.com are going to join me, by the way. Anybody who does try to find ZenInTheCar.com, right at the moment, there's a little problem with the website, but you can find it on you can find the fan page on Facebook, ZenInTheCar.com on Facebook, and get the updates there, and I'm sure you guys will straighten out those technical issues really shortly.
Yeah, it seems ever since the Department of Homeland Security became subscribers to the website, we get little gremlins at important moments all the time. Hopefully it is something that we will be able to take care of before the first of the year. But yeah, I would ask all your listeners who are interested in what we have to say tonight to go to the fan page. It's just Zen in the Car on Facebook for the moment.
Right, but there is a website. It does exist. I have seen it, so, regardless of whether it's been scrubbed or destroyed or hacked or whatever, to be honest with you, I know it's out there, and I know you guys will figure out a way to get it back up. So, and I definitely advise people check in on that. They can read a whole story about your experience with the local police and stuff like that as well, which is definitely a hot topic right now. Of course, your experiences with the police might not be as hot a topic because best I know, I think you're a white guy, so it's not a hot topic in the mainstream. Anything that would have went on with you, there's no way that would be part of the conversation.
Yeah, but I wear black all the time, Chuck.
Well, yeah, I understand, and I have often tried to explain that, look, man, the only color that matters, generally speaking, is green, because unless you are a very rich individual, you don't have the means to buy your way through the system, usually, and that's really what counts most of the time. Of course, there's been a lot of upset in recent days, and I'm feeling it too. Believe me. I am not happy about any of this stuff that's going on, but I have been talking about this now for quite a while, long before these protests were breaking out, and long before any of this stuff was news, or newsworthy, let's just say. We were discussing what is wrong with the police. Why are they changing? Why is the culture changing? Why are they becoming militarized, mechanized? Why do they need MRAPs? These were, questions from crazy people, obviously. Those of us that had this crazy idea that we lived in a free country. But go ahead.
As you mentioned, everybody who does contribute to ZenOnTheCar.com, it's not that we watch YouTube videos of police brutality. We experience it firsthand all the time. I know I have confirmed Jason Turner and Jason Patrick will be calling in soon. We might have a special surprise guest calling in as well that can probably elaborate on their experience with police brutality. But it is something that's increasing in this country that I think we need to address.
Right. 478, I've joined you into the conversation. Who do I have?
Hey, this is Jason Patrick.
Oh, there we go. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
All right. I have not had you on my show before, sir, but I have heard a great deal about you.
All right, very good.
You've been mentioned on my show.
All good, of course.
Yeah, you've been mentioned on my show several times. This other guy you might know a little bit, named Daniel Lewis Crumpton, actually mentions you all the time. So,
all right.
He's my brother from another mother.
There you go. So, Daniel, I'll leave it to you to explain, because all I know about Jason actually is that he is a near and dear friend of yours, and is somebody who is part of the Zen in the Car team. So, go right ahead and explain to the listener who hasn't heard Jason before, but has heard of him before. Go ahead.
Jason Patrick is quite well known in the activist community. He's a close friend of mine. I consider him a brother. We met up back when Ron Paul was running for office. And after that, we were kind of connected at the hip with a lot of this stuff. He and I, we bleed red, white, and blue, and we often have to, wear the shiny bracelets, as Patrick says. Patrick has come up with this idea that I want to let him talk about for a little bit, called Operation Simple Request. I'll let him elaborate on it because I think it's quite ingenious. But if there's anybody from ZenOnTheCar.com that has experienced what we're going to be talking about tonight, police brutality and the police state, it's he and I. And I'll just go ahead and pass it off to Patrick. I mean, he needs no further introduction. I'm sure most of your listeners already know who he is and follows him anyway. So go ahead, Patrick.
Well, Operation Simple Request just kind of started. We have resources available to us as citizens to redress grievances, and I've come to find out that a lot of them don't work, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't still use them. So Operation Simple Request, what we found in the Liberty community or Patriot community, a lot of people feel the same way, but they're busy trying to live their lives and pay their taxes, obviously. so the Operation Simple Request was something that you could do. A lot of people are on Facebook. You could see that all the time, and you could do it from your house. You could email a public records request to nearly any department in the country anytime you see something happen. So we started trying to streamline that so that you could come to like the Operation Simple Request and see where we were doing it mostly in Georgia with stuff that we knew that was going on. And so if a police department, say in the Bosavon, I can't pronounce that name very well, but the 18-month-old that was flashbang grenaded by police, a lot of those sometimes don't get the media attention that one happened to. But when you know about it, if you can get it on Operation Simple Request, and then all these requests start coming in. So it's putting public scrutiny, public peer pressure on these departments that are doing these things. And it's something that, Americans sort of stop doing. They feel like they're alone in it, and then nobody really follows up. So we were starting to try to get people to find a place where maybe they don't know what's going on. And in Georgia, it's kind of built up from that a little bit. There's one, David Hooks, down in Lawrence County, was killed by officers, so there's going to be a rally down there. But, if a police department that doesn't normally hear from anybody gets 1,000 public records requests regarding something that they've done, they would have to, when normally they don't get any, it's just trying to shine that light on it. You got to think that somebody in a department somewhere, when they get this many public records requests on something they've just done, will have to realize, oops, we've done something wrong. Now, can I guarantee that happens? No, but, it is the avenue that we have in this country. Let's use it.
Well, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand and has been put aside even on a national level. Under the Freedom of Information Act, which has been somewhat gutted at this point in time, you do have the right as a citizen, as a taxpayer, to ask for, the public records of an incident, generally speaking. So long as it doesn't, apply to national security, blah, 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 blah. And, of course, there's all sorts of games that get played with that, but basically a very simple request is the first step to dealing with this type of thing. And so it's a really poignant name, and, on a local level, it would definitely put pressure on these small departments. It has worked on a national level to some degree to get them to release things, to get them to start investigations, or to begin to examine policies and things like that. So it is a positive idea. And, even if you do not receive exactly what it is you've requested, even if the avalanche of requests don't necessarily get answered, it does serve as a pressure point to the authorities in charge.
Exactly right. What we found that we get a lot of the times is this is part of an ongoing investigation. But if you're in a department that gets that many requests, because what happens, or what I think happens, is when police do something embarrassing, what do they probably want to do, like most anybody else that does something embarrassing, is they want to cover it up. And I think they've been doing that for a long, long time, and it's up to citizens to say, sorry, no, you're not going to cover this up. We want to know what happened. We want to know why. And just send that out there so that they know we're watching. We know what you're doing, and hopefully bring change. I mean, it has to change some way, and if it can change from 10,000 people simply sending an email from home and shining lights on and continuing to put pressure on departments that are doing these things, that would be great. So we don't have to go down the other roads that tend to be going down.
Yep.
Well, right, and like I said, this is one of those things that you're well within your right to do. And unfortunately, this was the kind of pressure that used to be exerted, by the so-called fourth of state. The news media used to do this.
Yeah.
And now in the era of the citizen journalist, to be honest with you, that means that although we don't necessarily have the monetary power that we once did, we actually have a greater aggregate number of individuals who could do this more so than we had in the past, relying on the mainstream assets as they were. So to be honest with you, we're actually in a better position now to sort of exert pressure on the authorities that be through mechanisms like this. I mean, that's my opinion anyway.
I'm involved in the Patriot community, and a lot of people think that, one thing I tell all the time is, JFK said that those who make a peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And I kind of see our country going in that direction. And so I want as peaceful a revolution as is possible. So if all these people say, well, I'm willing to die for my country, I'm willing to stand up to authorities, and if it comes down to shooting bullets, well, that's me. I said, okay, great. Can you send an email? Can you pick up a stamp and lick a stamp and put it on an envelope? Because right now, that's where the revolution is at. There's a current revolution happening in this country, and all you have to do now to be a part of it is to write on an envelope, lick a stamp, and mail it in. And you'll be doing your part in a peaceful revolution that is currently happening in the United States of America. Now, you might not get the answers you want, but you will be a productive member of a peaceful revolution that is happening in America. Now, they might make it impossible, right? The powers that be might say, make it impossible, but at least you'll be doing your part.
I think the genius of Jason Patrick's brainchild is that what it really effectively does is, like he said, you may not get the answers that you want, but we are sending a message that, if 1,000 people in the community send open records requests, that lets the quote-unquote authorities know that 1,000 people are watching. And that's something they don't experience. They haven't experienced that before. I think that is the main impact that what the Operation Simple Request is going to make if people will engage in it.
Well, absolutely, and a comment from the chat room is that we don't have an access to the mainstream, and that's correct. But the problem was that at one time, believe it or not, we did. That has been lost over the years as the corporate interests have, collectively grabbed up these things, and now we're down to just about 5 corporations. I think it's still 6, but who knows, because they're all actually in bed together anyway. It's really the one greater corporation at this point that controls those assets. But the thing was that there were something called investigative journalists. I know they've gone the way of the dinosaur, but there were actually people out there that did digging, that were trying to expose truth, generally to promote their own careers.
There still are.
Well, right. But
I am one. If you're afraid, if you're stuck with there's no journalist, be one. The First Amendment of the United States is freedom of the press.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly.
If you're nailing freedom of Operation Simple Request makes every single American a investigative journalist. Be one. Be the media. Daniel says, told you, we met through Ron Paul. Ron Paul said, be the media. He knows that we don't. America is the mainstream. We don't need a mainstream media to do what every American has the right to do. Just do it. Be wherever you are. Get a camera. Be the media. Go down and talk to your sheriff's department. Get along with them. Don't be afraid. Just stand up and be the media. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them why they're doing it.
Absolutely, that's exactly why I'm doing the show I'm doing. You know what I mean? This is exactly how I came to start speaking out constantly, is because I was rather sick of what I saw in the mainstream. And at one time though, the mainstream was different than what it is today. No, we don't rely on them anymore. You don't ask Walmart to tell you where to get your locally grown food. It just doesn't work that way. Okay.
Can I chime in real quick?
Oh, sure.
Patrick, he knows my mom very much. Me and my mom were sitting at the table this morning drinking coffee. She's in her 70s, and she has Facebook. Of course, I had to teach her how to do that. But she made a very good point that kind of made me raise my eyebrow. She said, son, I look through my Facebook feeds and I see all these videos of police shooting people and beating people and doing, unlawful things. She says, but they've always done that. They've always done that. And I said, what do you think the difference is? And she says, now everybody has a camera.
Yep.
Well, see, that's one important point, but at the same time, as the numbers have grown in this country, and you cannot tell me that the police forces that we see on the streets now even resemble what we've seen in our lifetimes. I remember when I was a kid, I did not see riot gear being deployed, as often as we see it now. I did not see police dressed the same way. I did not see the attitudes of police officers the way they were when I was a kid.
Well, I didn't have nearly as many laws to enforce.
And that's true. That's true as well. A whole lot of laws get passed constantly. I mean, you can get out of bed practically and break a law, and you don't even know it anymore because they're being constantly amended, added to. The law books are absolutely staggering to try and even consume for the average individual, right? And this is the thing. This has changed. I understand that that police brutality has existed for a long time, but the fact that we're seeing it out there, look, there's still a whole lot of it not being recorded, not being disseminated too. Okay, it's not as though we're catching more of it. We may have a greater awareness of it because of the electronic age, the speed by which this stuff can get shared. I mean, if we take it back to the Rodney King situation. Okay, if it wasn't for that video camera, we probably would have never heard about it. So she has a point, but at the same time, it's still not the same world. It's just not even close. I mean, that's my opinion anyway.
Well, I got to think that when you were a kid, nobody would have got choked to death for selling cigarettes, singles on the side of the road.
No, the only time somebody would have gotten killed by police when I was a kid, and believe me, I lived in some rough areas, and there was plenty of confrontations, there was people pulling guns on cops and everything else, and you did not see this kind of thing happening. It just wasn't, it wasn't over, something that could easily have just been issued a ticket or whatever else. A tax violation is punishable by death now. This wasn't the way it was. You had to violently confront a cop in order to evoke a response like that. You know what I mean? And look, and they're human beings too. And I'll tell you the truth, man. If you're going to go at a guy with a gun who's carrying a gun, you take your chances, brother. But, somebody who's standing there and just not being entirely, submissive, that's not punishable by death. And it didn't happen this way exactly, Jason.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, the only thing that I can see the contributing factor to the rise of what you've seen even in laws and then the force, in this country, there is a civil war in this country that's been going on right now for a good long while. You know what it is, right? There's currently a civil war. It's declared by the government, right? It's a war on drugs. You can be a completely civil person. There's a bunch of civil people in this country now that smoke a plant that somebody said is illegal. But there's a civil war as well. That person is the enemy, and they'll kill him at all costs. So, now they'll try to detain him at all costs. They'll try to kidnap him at all costs, but that's the civil war. There's a civil war. It was declared by the government. Everybody thought it was a good idea. Now we're seeing it's probably a bad idea. And how do we change the mentality back once we get where they're going? I just see the war on drugs. You see the rise of the military, rise of the warrior cop. Well, there's been a war declared. It was when I was in high school. There's a war on inanimate objects. Well, those inanimate objects aren't dying, but people are dying every day. Cops and, nonviolent people. Some violent people, whatever you want to call it. Even when you take the war on drugs, I was talking to somebody else about immigration. The war on drugs has harmed the immigration because you've got cartels that for years now have perfected sneaking drugs into our country. Well, if they're already sneaking drugs into the country, why not sneak people as well and make it more profitable? So if you end the war on drugs, you fix sort of two problems. The illegal drugs that come in from across the border can slow down or hopefully stop, and then the channels and avenues for illegal immigration to come across the border will hopefully dry up as well. So I think the far-reaching consequences of the war on drugs have been far more detrimental to the country than beneficial.
Well, that may be so, but that was started, in Richard Nixon's time. You know what I mean? He was the guy who brought us the war on drugs. And even so, and even with the civil unrest that occurred, during the Nixon administration, which was, largely centered around anti-war protests in Vietnam, and of course there was the race riots that occurred, during his administration as well, punctuated, obviously in '68, right after he took office, because of Martin Luther King Jr.'s death, stuff like this. I mean, even with all of that, we still did not see the militarized police that have risen up in the past, I would say, 2 decades. And the war on drugs has been there this whole time. Now, believe me, I'm not somebody who's in support on the war on drugs because, the way I see it is, it's perfectly all right if you use, the crap that the corporations sell us, which is a whole lot more poisonous than any of the crap that could be snuck into this country via south of the border. That's all fine and dandy. On the one hand, of course, we also know all about, the cocaine action that was going on, the guarding of poppy fields still to this day, the interaction of the
Iran-Contra.
The intelligence agencies. Well, Iran-Contra ties straight to the cocaine. The rise of the intelligence agencies getting even more power, via the Golden Triangle in Vietnam, on through the cocaine scourge, back into the heroin scourge once again on the streets, because now we're involved in a good, place to grow poppies. So, so this has always been a contradiction in terms anyway. And, of course, the illogical part of it is that you have a war on a substance and you have a war on an idea, which, of course, the war on terrorism is just another sham, very much the same as the war on drugs. But the militarized police, I don't think, rose up until quite a bit later than the war on drugs. I mean, I don't know what you'd think about that, but, I mean, it's just what I see.
Well, Chuck, what I think is you had to lay the groundwork. You got to lay the foundation first, and the foundation was declaring a war on drugs. And now that you have a war on drugs, what you can do is you can say that knocking over meth houses has become so dangerous that we're going to have to militarize the police and give every town a Linco Bearcat, things of that nature. You first had to have the war on drugs, and then you can use that as a premise to militarize police. Like me and Patrick can tell you more than anybody else. One of the reasons that our hometown of Warner Robins, Georgia, which is a small town, is justifying getting the Linco Bearcat, an assault vehicle, a tank, is because they say they need it to hit houses, meth houses, and whatever, all kinds of other places that is a byproduct of this quote unquote drug war. You have to lay brick by brick. You can't justify militarizing the police unless you have this war that is needed, and that was the drug war.
Well, that was part of it, but then the escalation of it, of course, in the time, especially around the Oklahoma City bombing, we dealt with the idea that there was this rise of so-called domestic terrorism, the whole McVeigh thing, which was sold to the public, which I don't buy for a second. The idea of the militias being the evil, crazy nuts out in the woods and all that, which is, again, a bunch of crap. But still, this was another pointed bit of fear that they tried to sell. And again, it all comes down to the fear angle. And then when they couldn't really sell us enough of the domestic terrorism angle for a while, of course, we had to get into the foreign terrorist angle, right? And this is what's gone on. And, of course, the demonization of individuals who want to exercise their rights to live as they choose was perfectly convenient for the system to do this as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal would be to get people to be afraid of people who want to live as themselves. And I think we're going that way. Oh, what, you like freedom? Well, you're dangerous, and we need protection from you. Yeah, it's bad. How do you fix it? I mean, how do you simplify it down to a fixable? Fear is a commodity. in America. You know, people say a lot of times sex sells, you know, from an advertising standpoint. Well, not if you're the government. Fear sells. Make them afraid, and
that's
they
why
will pay.
You got it, and that's exactly why, you know, fear porn is one of the most well-coined phrases I've ever heard in my life, because it's sold exactly the same way, it's distributed exactly the same way. You know, you get a taste of it for free, and then we figure out a way to make you pay for the fact that you want it. You know what I mean? It's exactly the same thing, right?
You know, the Ebola scare, and the ISIS thing, and fear, and I don't know. You know, I'm not afraid. It's a free country that you live in. It's a beautiful thing. You know, I don't think the fears are much more higher than they ever were any other time. You know,
no, but now you can blast it on 5,000 channels.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't know how do you come back from it. I mean, what do you really have to be afraid of? I mean, I've walked around in a lot of places. There's not that much to be afraid of.
I'm totally with you, and that's the thing, is they've sold us on the idea, but the truth is that most of what they're telling us to fear in the streets is not the reality. You know, reality has very little to do with the control mechanism here. So, you know, this is what it all comes down to. Daniel, Sabrina just contacted me, but I'm not sure if I can get her. Let me see who this is trying to call in. Okay, 44. Or yeah,
that would be me.
All right, there we go.
Mrs. Black.
Hello.
This is can I go ahead and introduce her?
Please do.
This is Sabrina Black / Sabrina Mergenthaler. She's a contributor at IntoTheCar.com, and she's also the chief writer and editor at Divine America at Blogspot.com. Most people can know her from the show that recently aired, Naked and Afraid. A very prolific writer, an intelligent mind, a very powerful activist, and I'm glad that we have her on our side. And I'll go ahead and let her speak now. I just had to go ahead and do that because she's my sister from another mother.
Well, in all fairness, I'm getting into the show kind of late. We had some family priorities we had to take care of. What's going on tonight?
Flute recital.
Oh, okay.
I'm just joking.
Well, look, you know, it's pretty easy. We're discussing the ramping up of the police state, exactly how that's going on. We discussed the drug war and how that's been utilized as an excuse to mechanize and to militarize the police forces, and how that has evolved. I believe that also they've tried to sell us the idea of fear, and we've kind of agreed on that fear is definitely a commodity which is being sold out there, and is being used so that the population will acquiesce to this greater control by the police state as it stands. And I think that just about wraps everything around. Of course, we got a little bit of a treatment about Jason's idea about a simple request, and exactly what that means, and how we as citizens do deserve to be able to ask questions and to make requests of the authorities that be, regarding situations that come up. How this used to be part of the job of the mainstream media, as it were, but we are now the media. The citizen journalist, the age of the citizen journalist, is definitely in full effect, and I think I've just kind of crammed that down to 60 seconds or so. So
that was a perfect little sum up. It was, I might actually blow you a little bit away because, in the research that I've done, and I'm also, a freelance little journalist just like the rest of us here, I have actually discovered that mainstream media has blown the negative stories, all the stories about, the police state and all that, they have blown it so out of proportion to push that fear agenda, and it's absolutely working. One of the things that really people need to understand is, I shouldn't even say they need to understand, but I hope they begin to understand more than anything, is that the police are not our enemies. Right now, they are just as much a target by mainstream media as the race baiting. Everything that's going on right now is all being driven by mainstream media to divide and conquer the nation. And when we stop acknowledging that, we entrusted these people to stand in our defense. Well, let's be honest. Putting on a uniform with a little badge on it doesn't make you a superhero. They're human beings. They're just as fallible as the rest of us. So when I hear about these ideas of the police state and everything, I used to be right on board with that. And then I did a little bit of research and I discovered that mainstream media is really painting it to be more than it is. Yeah, you have some bad seeds in the police force, but the reality is, instead of doing our part as citizens, which would be to get in touch with our local police departments, which would be to work with them as opposed to challenging them, it could be a lot better. But police aren't going to turn in bad police because guess what? One day they're going to be standing, either side by side or in front of each other having a real problem, like, having to shoot a bad guy. And you want to be able to trust the person behind you isn't going to shoot you in the back because you ratted them out, right? So we've really put the police in a bad place right now. We've put a target on their back. We've drawn lines in the sand. We've encouraged citizens to acknowledge a police state when we should be saying, okay, we are here to support our police officers. We want them to get the bad ones out. And we need to take personal responsibility for our own communities. Case in point, recently, the Walmart just up the street from us, somebody decided they were going to torch the clothing department, as a protest to what they feel was an injustice. And as we all know, or maybe we all know, maybe I'm late to the show, but that was no injustice. If you're going to act a certain way on the street, I'm one of those people who believes that if you can't behave in society appropriately, you don't belong in society. We spend so much time trying to save people who are just the wrong people to save. And for what? So that they can come back and do the same horrible things they do, and then we want to get mad at police when they gun them down? I'm not that way. I'm all about it. This country needs a purge like it's nobody's business. And if the police are doing it, hey, somebody's got to wear that, I'm glad they can wake up in the morning.
Well, let me ask you something then. So, in your opinion, you don't see that that there has been an amping up of aggression from those that have badges and carry guns at this point?
I would absolutely agree with that. But let me ask you something: if you knew that there was a target on your back, where the vast majority of people had it out for you, don't you think you might take a little bit more of an aggressive stance?
Well, I'll tell you what. I have seen, a mother with children in a minivan getting dragged out. Okay,
yes, we can agree on that topic. I have covered that topic where I do not agree with the laws they are forced to enact and the way they go about enacting them. However, it comes down to that whole phrase, "We're just doing our job," which, what lines do we draw there? Because when it comes down to the militarization of the police, who do you want to have the weapons that they're receiving?
Well, the other problem is not just the weaponization, but the change in the culture, and there has been a serious change in the culture that I've seen, again, with my own eyes, not looking at a statistical study, but I'm telling you right now, I've taken a flashlight to my head for asking what it was that I was doing wrong when I was approached by a police officer.
I totally understand that. But at the same time, what are we, the people, doing to correct this problem other than shining the light right back?
Well, the question,
when we sit here and say, look at what this cop is doing, instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here, let's see what we got to do to fix it together, kind of like a community.
I agree with that, and my question, I guess, then remains, is what can we do? That's where Operation Simple Request.
It's very simple. It's very simple. The people of the community can come together and decide, do we want corrupt police or do we want to work with them? Well, I don't know any of my neighbors. I don't know any of my neighbors, and they don't want to know me. Why? Because we are no longer a community. You know, nobody wants to know what anybody else is doing. Everybody's got this mindset of mind your own business. So when stuff that's bad goes down, you know, of course we trust the police to handle it. And when you paint a target on their back, they're going to handle it the only way they know how, the only way they've received training, and it's to draw the gun first. And it's that, but it's our very own fault. They are just another citizen. Police officers, they're just another citizen.
In Warner Robins, when they wanted to buy the Bearcat, we took 10 people with us to city council and tried to talk to the city council, and the city council didn't want to listen. They said, go get petitions. One of the councilmen said, well, you know, Warner Robins is 66,000 people, so bring me 6,600 signatures on a petition. That's 10%, and then it might mean something. And then what I noticed was the election for mayor, to win, he only got like 3,800 votes. So he doesn't even get as many votes to win the office as he wants me to get signatures on a petition to get them to pay attention to what the community comes in and talks about. The government, I mean, I agree with you, but the avenues that are available, but here's the government's play. And it actually works, I think, in our favor as soon as you can get people to realize it. When you go to talk to the government to change something, I don't care if it's the small local government or the big federal government, their play is to ignore you and hope that you get frustrated and go away. And it's been frustrating to watch and learn, but their play is to ignore you. And what I realized is, well, that's pretty much America's play too. If you're frustrated with unconstitutional laws, ignore them.
Right.
Ignore it, and
that's the thing. But that doesn't make them go away.
Well,
that doesn't make them go away.
It depends on how many.
You can't ignore things and expect them to go away. Everybody's going through the mundane things that they do every day, and they expect change. You know what they call that? It's called insanity. You can't do the same things every day and expect something to change. If there's going to be aggression, it needs to be on all sides. If they won't hear us, if they won't listen to us, then we got to make them see us. And how do you do that? Well, you amass people who believe like you do, and you stand in front of them. Now, you can choose to stand in front of them peacefully with your arms at your side. And by arms, I don't mean your hands, I mean your weapons. Because that's why we have the Second Amendment. And that's the only thing that speaks to these people. You know, and you know, that's one thing that we have seen repeatedly hurt the liberty movement is people too scared to use their Second Amendment. You know, if this was 1776, I don't think there would have been any kind of hesitation as far as, you know, going up to any member of Congress or the Senate or any elected official and saying, look, you need to do your job or we got something for you. Right? It's like that. Right now, we have the most corrupt administration in the White House who doesn't even care to cover up their crimes anymore. Well, where's the anger? You know, it's among the liberty people, but where is it among others? You know, not everybody I know is a liberal, but they don't have a clue what's going on. Why? You know, obviously alternative media is not amassing the amount of attention that it needs to. Why not? Because we haven't taken an aggressive approach.
You
so
know,
if you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bree. Finish your sentence. I'm sorry.
I'm good. You don't want to know where I was going next.
Well, you know, I can feel the hostility in your voice, and it's something that we all feel because, you know, we talk about in the Patriot movement, you know, when it hits the fan, when do we finally fight back? And I would say that it already has hit the fan. You know, the things that are going on, like in Ferguson, you know, and I'm not going to take a razor blade to those issues at all, but you have to look at this from those people's perspective. They had no other recourse but to bring violence to the system. So I see where you're coming from. Hopefully that's not something that's going to happen nationwide. But, you know, one thing that really has always boggled me is, you know, we see these police brutality videos on YouTube all the time, and there's like 50 people recording with their phone. when did the people put their phone down and accost the officer who has outstepped his boundaries as a peace officer under the authority of the Constitution?
Well, think about what you just asked, though.
Yeah.
Think about what you just asked. You just told everybody that they are the media, right?
Right.
And that's great. Everybody is the media. But the problem is, it's easier to look through the screen of your phone
right.
and not realize that it's happening right in front of you. Think about that. How many times do you see parents at their kids' recital and they're videotaping with their phone and their eyes never leave their phone?
Yeah. Right.
It might as well be TV. It's not real. There's that veil that they can put in front of them that allows them to separate reality from, I'm just watching another video on YouTube.
See, that's why I love you. You're so perspective.
I know. But see, that's the thing. That's what, you do need those people, and you need them in large quantities. And you know what? It's much easier to find support in people who are ready to raise their cameras than they are ready to raise their weapons. Now, that's where we come to our, the plan, basically. There needs to be a team who's willing to use their weapons, and there needs to be a bigger team, a much larger team that can't possibly be ignored, who are live streaming these events directly to the internet in such a massive amount of it that they cannot, the mainstream media cannot ignore it. One of the other things that we have working against us is the fact that alternative media isn't producing anything credible and anything professional. Okay? Now, we at one point had somebody like Alex Jones on our side, but look what that always turns into. It always turns into satire. It turns into false media. And then you got nothing. Then you lose your credibility among the rest of the people. One of the things that I like about Zen and Divine America is that everything is organic. We don't buy followers. We don't go out and tell people, hey, follow my blog or check out what I wrote, right? We let the people decide for themselves, and when you can see the numbers of people that are watching that, comparative to the rest of the nation, yeah, it's a small number. But every time you see those numbers go up and you know it's organic, you know that it's somebody who's actually listening and actually agreeing with what you're saying. So when I look at those numbers, I say, and I'm just going to throw my stats out there, but, my page has, it just went over 1,400 likes, which to me, that's like fabulous, but that's only 1,400 people who actually believe in what I'm writing. So are those 1,400 people willing to walk with us up to D.C.? And out of those, how many of them are willing to do it with their weapons? And how many are willing to come up there with their cameras and live stream? So that's where it starts. It starts with having a plan. Whose team are you on? Are you on the support team or are you on the action team? And when we have people with the balls to take action, we will start seeing some changes.
Ooh, well, I'm a little bit dumbfounded because I'll tell you something. First of all, I'm gonna give you a couple of disagreements, Sabrina, and that is primarily I don't think Alex Jones was ever actually on our side. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll give you that.
I agree with what's being said in my chat room right now. Yup, that is exactly what you said. Anonymous guy over here in the chat room. You're right. Okay, I'm sorry. The other thing is, I'm a little bit taken aback that you don't think that there has been a change in the culture in policing on a local level, on a national level, throughout this country.
I never said that. Did I ever say that?
Well, it seemed as though.
I think right now, I wouldn't say the culture of police has changed other than the fact that right now they are scared. They are probably more scared than the people they pull over or the people who they come into contact with because, they don't know what they're walking into. All they know is that they were called to do something and now they got to put their lives on the line. Let me put it like this. Do you expect somebody to put their life on the line for you?
See, I used to believe that, okay? I really did, until I started to see for myself. And you know what? If you've never seen any of this kind of stuff, bless you, really.
No, I've seen it, but I've stopped following it.
No,
following it because I believe in unity.
Not
I believe
secondarily.
that we need to stop with these things. We need to stop putting dividers in the sand, and we need to start uniting. This is, if we keep finding reasons to divide ourselves, we're never going to win this country back.
Look,
that's exactly what was prophesied. Okay, I look at that phrase as a prophecy. United we stand, divided we fall. And so far, there ain't nothing in the world that we are completely united on.
Yeah,
so
but
why
you
not
can't,
just keep throwing more things?
Okay, but you cannot unite people when you give people permission to abuse the public because of their position of authority, which has been happening. Okay, I take issue with that. I have seen nothing but an amping up of this stuff. I mean, I really thought for some years that it was a matter of a wide use of steroids out there that was causing the problem. Because all of a sudden I saw, regular guys were no longer part of the police, police organizations up north. Where I used to live in New Jersey. You ever seen a state trooper in New Jersey lately? These guys are not anything but intimidating. They have been. They do it in unnecessary situations and constantly. New York City, where I lived, there was, once the Giuliani administration took hold in that city, you don't even want to know the type of intimidation that started to go on. Yeah, they left certain things alone. They left certain neighborhoods alone. But, I mean, there was a definite change here where you didn't have to engage the community.
Are you aware that they hired these people specifically for their aggression?
But that's my point.
Well, that's the thing. The hiring process is what's wrong. I'm going to tell you flat out, I applied to be an officer, and I topped their test. I finished their test, top of the people that were there. I finished 15 minutes earlier than everybody else. Not a dent on my record, and they don't want to hire me. Why not? Because I'm too nice of a person, So when I see the people that they do hire, though, these are people who are willing to drag women out of their windows with children in the back seat. And let me tell you something. I sure would put myself in that position. I sure would be the woman telling an officer, no, I'm not giving you any ID. No, I'm not providing you anything that you want. And yes, my 3 children will be in the back seat. And when they yank me out, guess what? It's called I have the right to defend myself. And it's as simple as that. And when we start saying we are not going to tolerate this anymore, and if we're going to get yanked out of our car windows, we're coming out armed. And when we do that, police officers are going to start waking up and saying, is not having a tag on your car really worth either of our lives?
All right, good.
Is it constitutional?
I am so glad that you said all what you just said, because I'm telling you, I was starting to feel really like I misunderstood you at first. And I'll apologize.
I give everybody a chance.
Well, hold on. I'll apologize because I really did not think that you were taking that position. If police officers at this point are afraid, okay, to be honest with you, I am almost glad that they are, because some of them need to be. Okay, based on the actions that they've taken. Now, we have Derek trying to call in. Let me see if I can add him.
He's probably mad at me.
Hello, Derek.
Go to church.
Yeah, this is Derek.
How are you, sir? Daniel, you want to help me out here and explain to the listener? And Sabrina, I will get back to this, but I'm going to apologize right now because I was just about to get adversarial with you because I thought you were saying something entirely different. Okay, so let me just say that right now. I made a mistake there, and I started to get a little irritated. And I let you say what you were saying, but, that was me. Sorry.
I have that way with people. It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, but I appreciate your sentiments and everything else. But, Daniel, if you could explain to the listener, who Derek is, please.
I'll do the best I can because that's kind of a hard task. But this is our good friend Derek Grayson. Most people know him as T-Mont. He rose to be quite a beacon for all of us during the Ron Paul campaigns on YouTube. And after that, he put his money where his mouth was and decided to run for Senate here in the state of Georgia. And he's somebody who knows very well about the topic we're talking about tonight, police brutality in the police state and the degradation of our political system as we know it. I really don't think he needs too much of an introduction because I think all your listeners probably know who Derek Grayson is. And I didn't want to announce that he might be popping up, but I do want to go ahead and give him an opportunity to express some of his issues and some of the things that he thinks is important with the militarization of police right now. So my good friend Derek, if you would, you know what to do.
Hey, well, I'm humbled at that introduction. don't know if I quite deserve it. If you ask me,
No, now let me interrupt you real quick. No, you do deserve it, because there are many a day where I thought there was no way that this movement could go anywhere until I turned on a video from T-Mont and got fired up to get up and go on. So yeah, you do deserve it and more. So I'm sorry, I had to say that.
there you go. Thanks again. If people were to go back and look through my videos going back to 2008, a lot of the things that we see unfolding today, I've talked about. But I'm going to speak to some of the things just briefly that we see. Somebody tagged me on a post, and I get tagged quite a bit because people want me to go. It seems like, and I don't know if I'm offended by it, but I got tagged on a post where some people were going back and forth. One lady was saying, "To hell with police brutality, start dealing with the blacks being killed by abortion," and some other lady, "Well, until you get a uterus, you don't." And they were going back and forth, and this guy tagged me, and it's almost as if he was saying, "Okay, let me send the pit bull in here to go deal with this." Well, I'm not a pit bull looking to go jump in the mud with knuckleheads who are doing just what the media wants them to do, battling with each other. If you want to address the issue of abortion, start with the politicians that make the funding of abortion clinics possible. If you want to be upset about police brutality, start with the politicians that allow the policies and the legislation that is put in place that allows for the police to do the things that they do. Jason was with me, and I don't know if Jason was around when we went up north to speak about Baby Boo Boo, who was victimized by a no-knock warrant and a flashbang grenade. I stood up and I told the people in that particular county, you need to be dealing with your sheriff and the politicians and the judges that allow these no-knock warrants to be possible. If they didn't have that in their arsenal, they wouldn't be able to abuse you. But you are the ones who are ultimately responsible, the voters. And I spoke at the Cherokee Cattle Company. It's a restaurant up in Marietta the other night, and it was a debate about Article 5, which and I didn't have a lot of understanding about it, but I went and I learned and I did some more research on my own. Essentially, our biggest problem is we have to target the voters. We have to educate them. Jason put together a sheet of paper that listed how our rights were violated by three of the guys that I ran against, Kingston, Brown, and Gingrich. He put it down in black and white, and everywhere where we went to speak and gave out that literature, we sent people back to those three guys to ask them, did they do this? Did you do this? And I can't tell you the number of times where Team Grayson has shown up and provided an education about the Constitution, and that the responsibility for restoring this country rests with the voters. People would come and say, you got my vote. You might not win, but you got my vote. And like you, I'm not going to be complicit in sending the same people back over and over again to do the same thing that they keep doing. I could get into debate upon debate about the militarization of police and what we seem to think is an epidemic of cops killing innocent black men. There's something that I will guarantee you. Had not this guy up in New York, I think his name is Garner, had he not resisted arrest as opposed to standing up talking about, I didn't do nothing wrong, don't put your hands on me, had he just simply put his hands behind his back, went to jail, and had his day in court, he would be alive today. Had not Michael Brown been out engaged in criminal activity that night, had he not tried to fight with the officer, but simply got his ass out of the middle of the street to begin with, probably would have never even been pulled over, let alone shot to death, even though it may have been excessive. But see, here is something that people don't want to acknowledge, and that is black men being killed by cops ain't a new phenomenon. This has been taking place. And if people were to really call a spade, almost twice as many white men or whites have been killed by the police over the last decade than blacks. I think the number is something like 2,300 versus about 1,100 or so black men that have been killed by police. But people don't talk about this because that doesn't fit the narrative of the press. And the press is doing what they do best at the behest of the royals of both parties, and that is misleading the voters so that we continue to fight each other and continue to look for the politician to be our savior when we have what will save this country, and that is the Constitution. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not supporting an Article 5 Convention of States. If the politicians won't obey the Constitution we already got in place, what the hell good is it going to be to have them do an amendment for a balanced budget? They would simply just say, okay, we just can't spend that amount of money. We'll continue to spend on what we've been spending on. I'm lying, folks. If we had obeyed the Constitution in the first place, we wouldn't have needed civil rights legislation. And that's what it really comes down to with the Article 5 Convention. But politicians found a way to invalidate the Fourth Amendment protections that we got that were supposed to provide equal rights for all citizens, and that was the Compromise of 1877, which gave us Jim Crow laws in the South that further allowed the racist Democrats of the South to continue to discriminate against black folks. So if politicians want to screw you, all they need is a dumbass voter. Forgive me for saying it, but I'm frustrated to no end, but I am still determined to tell the truth, even though people will not like it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to tell you something. I'm very glad you cited what you did. However, one thing I want to say is that regardless of, look, if the guy had put his hands behind his back, he might still be alive. If the guy hadn't been involved in criminal activity, he might still be alive. But neither one of these things are a capital offense. Okay, so here we go about exactly what it means. I mean, to take a life is something that I no longer trust the state with that particular power, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I certainly don't believe that these men, for any reason, I don't care what color they are, and you're exactly right, there has been more than twice the amount of white men killed in police action of one sort or another than blacks. That's a truism. It's not exactly representative, precisely to the percentage of the population that blacks are versus whites, but it is still a fact. But the other thing here is that it's not a capital offense to have done these things, and this is what the some of the upset is, regarding this, and I understand that, and I'm sure you do as well.
Might I jump in here? Because I have a little bit of a take on a lot of what Mr. Grayson was saying. And I think there is a certain stance of, you need to know how to conduct yourself. I can easily refute giving an officer anything he's asking me for, and I can guarantee you that he's not going to do to me what has been occurring across the nation. And that's going to be all in the attitude that it's presented with. However, in terms when it comes to voting, we've witnessed the vote be completely fraud. You know, we have a man in the White House who shouldn't be there right now. And that's not because of the way people voted, it's because of the way people didn't vote. It was corrupted. So when we see that going on, how can we put our faith in a system that's completely broken? When you have two parties that are so prominent that there's no chance for a third party to get in or an independent party to get in, what does it matter who you vote for anymore? We need to start placing blame on politicians because I don't know about you, but I didn't elect Mr. Obama, and here he is making decisions for our nation. So what am I supposed to do with that? I can't sit here and say I support his decisions. Look what he's done to this place. But at the same time, what am I doing to change it? You know, I know you want to talk about Bookham, and I completely agree with that situation. Those police officers were completely wrong. I'm very angry to see that they didn't even pay hospital bills and that there were no charges filed against them. However,
which means they weren't wrong, they were justified. Right?
Well, wait a minute. Where's the responsibility of the people within that community to get the drugs out of their community? The drugs wouldn't have been there if the community didn't demand it. It's called supply and demand.
Speaking of the drugs, well, I'd like to hear, Derek Grayson has a website called operationeducate.me, which I have going to start contributing to quite often. But I'd like to hear, in conjunction with what you were saying about Habersham, Derek, what are your thoughts on this whole thing with the recent David Hooks issue here in Georgia?
David Hooks, and I'll be speaking at a rally there this coming Saturday. David Hooks is an American citizen who had two thriving businesses. One in which he had a construction contract with military. His past clean. He had background checks. Had background check done by Homeland Security. The man was clean. At any rate, somebody broke into his home, stole his vehicle, and the story is that after he stole the man's vehicle, he thought he was stealing some money from in the home. He went into the bag and saw that it was drugs instead, meth. And so he felt so bad about it that he was in fear for his life because he thought that maybe he had just robbed a kingpin. He went and turned himself in and told that story. And a warrant was obtained, a no-knock warrant, for a near midnight raid at 11 a.m. So the sheriffs in full riot gear returned to his home, no sirens, pulled up, car screeching. The wife was awakened, looked out the window, and saw masked men entering their home. She went downstairs and awakened her husband, who then got up, grabbed his weapon in defense of his home. And as they kicked the door down, they unleashed 18 to 19 shots, killing him in the hallway of his home, the front hallway of his home. Now, why have you not heard anything about this? One, it doesn't fit the narrative of divide and conquer. What it does show is this, and I'm going to compare and contrast it with Michael Brown. In the case of Michael Brown, this was two individuals, supposed or alleged perpetrator and an officer of the law. Everything took place between those two individuals. But it's a perfect narrative for police are out of control and killing black men. There's an all-out war on black men. Forget about all the other stuff surrounding Michael Brown. This is the narrative. This is what people like, and it keeps people divided. But now let's contrast that with Mr. Hooks. He's also a black man, but he was not a crook. The difference is this was not between a single solitary man and one police officer. This was a department. Several officers were involved in killing this man. It also involved the prosecutor's office that petitioned for a warrant that was signed by a judge based on the word of a crook. They are guilty up to the hilt of sin in the death of this man. And the reason it is being kept quiet, because it is the one thing that has made this country great. And that is the right to privacy, our Fourth Amendment, the right to privacy, our property rights, the right to be left alone by our government. And if they decide to approach us, they must follow the rules of due process. And all of this was denied to Mr. Hooks. Do you think that that department down there in Lawrence County wants this to be talked about, for these issues to be brought forth in the public? Because you know what would happen if they did? And I've been saying this before. When I ran for Senate, I stood up in Cherokee County and I told mostly white folk, there may have been one or two black folk out there, I say, now most of you think that you still got it made, that your government is not capable of doing it to you. And they will continue to push the narrative that it is still just the government against the black man to keep division going amongst us, while the government continues to erode the liberties and freedoms of every American citizen in this country, which is what happened to Mr. Hooks. If that word got out and white America all of a sudden woke up and realized what was going, there would be an overnight revolution at the ballot box the very next election. This is why they aren't talking about Mr. Hooks. This is why they don't want them to know, because if they can do that to Mr. Hooks, who was well within his rights to arm himself when he found his home being invaded by unidentified masked men, that would change the narrative. And they don't want that narrative to get out. And that is why it is being kept quiet. That is why people are not talking about it. And this is why we need to get involved. And one other thing, and I'll shut up. You talked about voting. Is there some improprieties in voting? Yes, there is. But you know what? It is not so widespread that we still don't have an opportunity to make a difference. I believe we still have the ability to make a difference at the ballot. And the other thing I take issue with, I'm sick of people blaming one man. Everybody thinks that Bush and Obama did it by themselves. They have 535 individuals in Washington, D.C. that makes what they do possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you something. I have a question about Mr. Hooks, actually. Are you telling me that the first thing that the police organization did there in its investigation was to conduct a raid on his home after being informed about this by somebody who was a criminal, who was an admitted criminal, essentially?
Exactly like Habersham, yes, sir.
So, in other words, there was absolutely no other sort of end to this process. There was no, investigation prior to that. There was nothing. It was just, okay, we got this information, and we're going to go kick in a door.
There you go.
You live in America.
Welcome to America. Exactly. This is America. This is the problem. Okay, this is the problem.
If I can for a minute,
please do.
address it like this. You know, I hear Sabrina talk about unity, and I think it's great. But the only thing that this country could possibly unify around is freedom and liberty. And if you take that one step further and go to what Derek's talking about, which is voting, Ron Paul united probably the largest following in the presidential election around freedom and liberty, and was cheated. So my question would be, can voting do it? Because Derek knows firsthand the cheating that happened in that. And then when you go one step further, again, with what Derek said about, being arrested peacefully and not resisting, which is sort of good. I've done it before. It wasn't beneficial to me. Would that have worked for the Jews when they were just doing their job? I mean, and then past that, when you say voting, could we have voted King George out of America? But the only thing we can unify around is freedom and liberty. And when we do and try to vote for it, we get cheated. And if we were peacefully arrested, we'll eventually be marching wherever the Nazis tell us to go. And we couldn't vote King George out of this country. Now, do I believe the fight's on all fronts? Absolutely. Do I think we should continue to vote like Derek Grayson says? Yes. Should we unify like Sabrina says? Yes. Should some people say, what's really funny is I'm in complete agreement with Derek Grayson, you need to vote. But I know other people that say, what you need to do is stop voting. And I'm sort of in complete agreement with them too, and here's why. What I said is the only way you can get them to stop is to ignore them. Only 27% of the population of this country even voted for Barack Obama. He's only president at 27%. What happens when that drops to 11? Well, those two things are contradiction to each other, but what they are is unity around freedom and liberty. You want to change it and you think voting changes it? Well, by God, vote. If you want to change it and you think not voting changes it, then by God, don't vote, because I am unified around freedom and liberty. It's got to change. I agree. Fight on all fronts. Freedom and liberty win.
Can I take it a little further than that?
Yeah.
I want to take it a little further and say, if you want change, sometimes you just have to destroy what's there. You know? Sometimes you need a clean slate. When they want to build something out here, I know they destroy whatever's standing there. You know?
The right to
I'm not saying we need to destroy the Constitution. I'm saying maybe we need to go back to the bare roots of the Constitution. Maybe it was perverted so much that we can't undo what's been done. We just need to start back from scratch. You know, start with the original Constitution and go from there.
Sure. Right. And so I guess my question to you, to Derek, because I love it. I mean, I vote for the right guy. I don't have the my guy syndrome that he talks about all the time. But given what you saw, Derek, with the Ron Paul election, can the right guy reach critical mass, or will he be put down at some point?
I can say this without any doubt. Two things. One, it only takes one man or woman to change a room.
Amen.
Okay? If Martin Luther King could destroy Jim Crow by exposing it to the light of day, even though it cost him his life, I believe we can change the course of this country. There's nothing wrong with our Constitution. And our Constitution has not been perverted. We have allowed people to go to D.C. and ignore the Constitution. When I stood up on stage and people refused to vow fidelity to the Constitution by stating, I will obey 100% of the Constitution 100% of the time, they should have been disqualified then. The problem was not with those people on the stage. The problem is with the voters here in the state of Georgia, which is why I did not win, because those voters were spoon-fed by corporate-backed media. Everybody didn't pay attention to the debates. Had they paid attention to the debates, the outcome would have been completely different, and Team Grayson can vouch for that. So I will say this. If you get me in that room in D.C., I will willingly lay down my own life to expose the corruption that is taking place in D.C. D.C. will then come to realize, by my very presence in that room, they will know that everybody in the country is watching to see what is taking place. And I will tell it. There is nothing that I fear. Not even my own life.
Let me say this, Derek. It wasn't that people weren't paying attention to the debates. It was that they were not allowed to pay attention to the debates by the media. Those who were there knew full well. I mean, I was there, Patrick was there, Turner was there. We knew because we saw firsthand who won the debates. But the people who were not allowed to be there, they were not allowed to see it. And
well, it was more than that. It was more than that. The media, I think they added, Derek Grayson as like a last sentence. Oh, by the way, Derek Grayson was there.
If they mentioned him at all.
And then the only coverage that he got was an attempt to bash his history, and we had to clean that up before it even got out. But what about, why don't we talk about why we can't even trust politicians? Like you said, there's 535 of them up there just doing their own thing, but how many of them have compassion for humans? And I'm leading to something here, okay? Because we want to go back to Habersham. Well, we watched a bunch of politicians show up there, and did one of them say, "This is your community, and you need to act like a community and stand up together and push out your drugs"? No. Every one of them said, "Here's what I would do if I was up in the politician seat. I would get rid of the militarized police. I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to make those changes." Not a single one of them gave a damn about a human life there that they should have said an innocent child was harmed by accidents caused by the police. Sure. No, they all went out there to get a vote. Every one of them. And it was sad because once all of them got done, nobody wanted to hear another word. And when the only person who got up saying anything about community and how they need to pull it together, everybody tucked tail and, hey, have a nice day. So, yeah, when you talk about politicians and getting up into the seats, you know what? I hate to say it, but every single human on this planet has a little piece of them that's capable of being corrupt. And when they get into that power seat, what happens? It happens all the time. They don't do the darn thing that they're supposed to do. And I'm sorry, I know we see a lot on the media about Rand Paul and all these guys who are speaking out for the citizens, but you know what? They're on a mission. They're on a mission to keep their votes. And what's going to happen they're not going to get their way. It's all just a show to make us feel like we can support them, when in reality, they're just trying to preserve their well-being. And I say that because, you know what? They're going on vacation soon. And how long are they going on vacation? Long enough. I don't know a single American that can take the amount of time off from their job to enjoy a nice winter vacation as our politicians do. Okay, I see too much power extended to them, and as a result, nothing ever gets accomplished. I'm sorry, but it's down to personal responsibility. And until the citizens wake up and realize that politicians ain't going to do nothing for us because apparently the people in power are ignoring the ones that want to make any changes, it requires support from the bottom level and the top level. Okay, when the politicians start trusting the citizens to show up in D.C. with their weapons and say enough is enough, we're not taking it anymore, maybe then we'll see some changes. Maybe when the politicians start fearing for their lives, maybe we'll see some changes.
Well, and the thing that touched me right there when Mr. Grayson was talking here is that, sir, if you ended up in the district of Semiramis, I don't think you would get to last very long. I got to be honest with you, because you are not you're not on board with this. You're not on board with this. I would suggest to you, if I was close to you, that if you got your wish and you got to be able to go there as a representative, that you made your peace with everything before you left, sir. Because there is no way.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and tell you this right now, Chuck. All of us know Mr. Grayson on a personal level, and in my humble opinion, I can't find anybody else as close to Ron Paul as this man. He is what you hear. He is what you get what you see, or you see what you get, however you phrase that. And I believe you're right, and that's a scary thing, and I think that Mr. Grayson understands that. And I think he knows that, and I think that's why he has such a following and inspires so many people, is because he knows exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, sadly, that is what it's going to take, and a very good point about Dr. King. Dr. King, though, in my estimation, was not killed necessarily because he was destroying the Jim Crow laws, but you notice the hostility and the real threats came against him when he started to speak out against the Vietnam War. When he started he was
unifying the people around liberty and freedom.
Well, there you go. But the idea that he no longer wanted us to participate in the spiritual death of this nation by exporting death upon others, this was what the problem was. this is really what the problem was, and it was a human issue. It wasn't a matter of race. It wasn't a matter of anything other than doing the right thing. And that's an odd thing to hear out of anybody who gets a chance to speak. And I'm actually hearing exactly that out of Mr. Grayson tonight, the same type of speech where he is honestly looking at something, and I'm actually sad, although kind of glad because I've gotten the opportunity to speak with you. But I'm kind of sad that you didn't get a chance to go there, although I do believe it would have been a very short-lived time that you would have had to be able to speak out and to make your influence known. Because once you do threaten the larger system, they will try to chew you up, and this is the way things do go. I know it's going to take a lot of us to do this kind of thing, and because this was not built overnight. We're going to have to do this, incrementally back to take things back, as it were. And getting back to the Constitution is definitely what is in order here. I don't know.
I have a couple questions. Since Derek is on the show. One is, are you running in 2016 for sure?
I am running in 2016. Yes, I am running for sure. We will officially announce in January. But you can count me in the race. We're going to get started early. I'm going to suggest that people pay close attention to OperationEducate.me, that they pay close attention to the campaign website, which will be Grayson2016.com, as well as my Facebook page. Jason takes a lot of the stuff that I post there and puts it out there, but I'm constantly putting out information to individuals. Now, and I'll close with this. It was mentioned that Barack is the president of 27% of the people. I'm not worried about Kool-Aid drinkers. I'm looking for that other 63% that's not voting. That's who we need to be targeting.
Yep.
Okay. That's who we need to go after. They can turn the tide. And that said, people say, well, what makes you think they're going to pay attention? When you tell the people who's actually doing it to them, they do things differently. And when I was talking about the debates, the countless folk that came to us and said, you now have our vote, that was because we told them who was doing it to them. We showed them in black and white. And trust me, had we been putting out information that was not true, unlike Purdue and Nunn, who constantly told half-truths about each other, we told the truth about the guys and the people that we were running against. And I'm going to tell you this. Johnny Isaacson, if no other Republican runs against Johnny Isaacson, I will win. Team Grayson will win. Georgia will win. And this country will win. So the Republican Royals, they better be calculating pretty good. And if they do decide to put somebody else up because they fear that, then they better be prepared to reap the whirlwind, because, see, we got a game plan for corporate-backed media as well. We're not going to try and work with corporate media like we did last time around. We're going to go around corporate media. We will find a way to reach the masses, and OperationEducate.me is part of that arsenal that we've already unveiled. Thank you for having me on your show.
And I had one more question before you go. My other question was, especially to you, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you off the air, but do you see there is a lot of peaceful protests going on around the country, and for me it's sort of reminiscent to like a Martin Luther King march. I've seen some of them firsthand in Seattle that remain peaceful. What do you think about what's sort of going on now with the 2 or 3 shootings that are being protested and the people who are marching? Do you believe the Martin Luther King, the peaceful march, has a productive purpose in America still?
Yeah, peaceful marches are productive. What was productive about Martin Luther King's peaceful protest, he told black people, stop riding the bus. in March. That brought Montgomery bus transit system to its knees. So they got rid of their policy of blacks in the back of the bus. He told the sanitation workers, stop picking up the garbage. And we marched. They started getting equal pay for doing the same job as their white counterparts. Their march in Birmingham, where the dogs, water hoses, and billy clubs were turned on them, and they still didn't fight back. When that got revealed to the world, that dealt the death knell blow to Jim Crow. So peaceful marches have a purpose. The Bundy Ranch, that was a peaceful protest, even though the Oath Keepers were there and armed. They were peaceful. They were showing, we want peace if you want peace. But if you don't want peace, we will meet force with force. This is why the government wants to disarm us. This is why there is an attack on the Second Amendment. It was cell phones that kept it peaceful at the Bundy Ranch, because guess what? The government don't want another Birmingham where the public gets to see the government doing what they do best, and that is dirt, like they did at Kent State, like they did at Waco. If there had been more people, Oath Keepers in Ferguson, it would have been peaceful, because the folk out there trying to burn down buildings wouldn't have wanted to join Michael Brown. You notice they wasn't attacking that brand new police building. That's who they should have been mad with. They weren't attacking the police officers. That's who they should have been mad with. Instead, they were attacking innocent citizens. But you know, the Oath Keepers ran out of there, because the Oath Keepers would have ensured peace. I'm sorry, I'm done.
All right.
I just wanted, I guess what I'm saying is I see protesting happening a lot, and I see it, and I think it's good, but I also see it counterproductive. What's the most effective peaceful march? Now, you got people out there marching, some 5,000 in different countries. Where should those people be marching? What should that peaceful protest look like today? Because we can't go back and ride the bus, but where should they be marching? I mean, they're marching on freeways and shutting it down, and that's pissing off a lot of the, ignorant sort of voters. Where should they be marching? Where should those peaceful marches be going?
Okay. Some folk get out and they just go march, but they really have no purpose. They may say, well, we're marching to protest the shooting of Michael Brown, where there may not be any violence. But what is that? That's not doing anything. Every march or protest that Martin Luther King engaged in had a purpose. The marching in Selma was about stopping the disparity in wages for black sanitation workers. But guess what? He also added teeth to it. He told them to stop picking up the garbage. Now, if we were to have if they really wanted to make a difference in Ferguson when Michael Brown got killed, why didn't Oprah Winfrey or some of those football players that were out there like idiots raising their hands on the football field, why didn't they all get together, go there and rally all of those people, predominantly black in Ferguson, to go down to the polls this past November and vote out the folk that are in office that's making life difficult for them as they claim? But that didn't take place, because that ain't the kind of change that they want. That has teeth to it. So when you march, you also need a plan of action that has teeth in it. And generally, when you mess with their power structure or their pocketbook, you get results. And you are correct about Martin Luther King. It wasn't the destruction of Jim Crow that got Martin Luther King killed, because America wanted a change in Jim Crow. It was when Martin Luther King started attacking the power structure, the illegal war in Vietnam. Those things are what got Martin Luther King killed. Same thing with John F. Kennedy.
You got it exactly right, sir. And I spent a lot of time on both of those assassinations, and you're absolutely correct, sir. Look, I want to thank you. I know you wanted to get going, and it's really been a pleasure. And I'll tell you what, if I can get you one vote in 2016, you're welcome to come back on here, and I do wish you the best of luck. Actually, you're welcome on here anytime you like, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to it.
All right, and I definitely want to do anything I can. I'm telling you, if I get you 2 votes, I'll be happy. You know what I mean?
That's 2 more than what we had.
You got it. You got it. And really just a real privilege. And, thank you, Daniel, for putting me in touch with Mr. Grayson. I can't thank you enough.
I can't take that much credit for it. I'm going to have to go ahead and throw that credit to Jason Turner. We kind of worked together, but, I'm going to throw that credit to Jason Turner.
Right, who I tried to add into the conversation, but couldn't quite get him in.
Yeah, we got gremlins in the system tonight, brother.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. It's the way it goes. But, this is the thing, though, and I've got to say this because I have really lost my faith, and Jason touched on this, about those who have extracted themselves from the voting system. I have seriously lost my faith in the ability to influence the system in this way. I think it can't do us any harm to support the better candidates. If this guy was running in my district, I would make it my business to vote for him, though. I'll tell you that. But I don't see these kind of people stepping up. Generally speaking, there's not too many of them. Very, very rare. And even then, we have a great deal of manipulation. I know Mr. Grayson doesn't think it's on a widespread scale, but all I see is evidence of that, personally.
Let's unify again around freedom and liberty. I mean, I have friends on both sides. I have Derek Grayson's a true friend. I work in his campaign. I work with it, and those people are vote for the right guy. And I've seen Derek Grayson's ballot. He voted for himself. He voted for the right guy, and he even wrote my name in when there wasn't a right guy. So he's done the research and whatever. If you don't know who the right guy is, then write your own name in. But at the same time, I know people like other people in Atlanta who don't vote, and I see. I mean, having looked at the dynamics of it. But what I do know about those people who don't vote, even a lot of them voted for Derek Grayson. Probably the only race they voted in. They didn't vote in any of the rest of the races, but they did know there was one right guy. So I agree. If there isn't a right guy for president, guess what? I'm going to cast a ballot for one of them jokers. I'm just not going to do it. And then people try to blame me. But what I want to, if not voting works, what happens when 11% elect them? So I can't fault. I love freedom and liberty. If you're not going to vote, if there's a right guy, you should vote for him. But if you don't believe it can't win both directions. Sure. Do I know which one's the right way? No. But I do love freedom and liberty, and that's where we unify.
Well, can't argue with you there, brother. Cannot argue with you there, and that is exactly right. Just for the record, though, in 2008, if I would have qualified to vote because of a restriction in New Jersey, I would have voted for Cynthia McKinney probably, which would have been closer to the right person than what we got. So let's just leave it there. I am actually registered to vote now as a libertarian, which caused an interesting little thing to happen when I registered, by the way, here in North Carolina. Because they were shocked that I didn't accept the first 2 or unaffiliated. So I had to say, no, I'll go with libertarian because that's the closest thing I can think of. Although the Libertarian Party has been changed over the years, it's the closest thing to what I could identify myself as.
Isn't that the shame in itself that you have to identify with a specific party? I mean, what about the party of just humans? People who believe in the right to live freely. I mean, that doesn't exist. You have to throw in topics like abortion and who has the right to own what and what kind of insurance you have to buy. I mean, why are those things that politicians are even talking about?
And I've always asked that question as well because that's not going to be the main issues that they're going to do anything about, even if they do anything at all. The issues that are really going to affect us are going to have to do with where the money is being spent, how the taxes are being collected, the acceptance of wars one way or another, depending on whether they're.
How about closing down the border? I mean, where's that topic? Where's that topic in any of the politicians' mouths? I mean, there is no reason. China built this freaking massive wall to keep people out, and it's few thousand miles. We can't take care of a freaking 1,200-mile border. Are you serious? We got to use fence, a chain link fence that people can scale. In some places, it's non-existent. I mean, why is that such an absurd thing? Why is balancing the budget such an absurd idea for freaking politicians to make happen? Why is this however many years it is down the road, and we're still without a budget? We're still with our gates wide open, and it's worse than it's ever been. You know, and I think it was Jason Patrick who said to me, you know, he enlightened me to this, is that, you know, there's no reason to be mad at the illegal immigrants that are coming in. And he's absolutely right about that, and I'll tell you why, as he explained it to me. You know, they're just doing what's right for their family. Now, unfortunately, our government is using them as a tool to creep in the drugs, to creep in the terrorists. You know, where's all the discussion about that? Where's the discussion about when we're going to put a stop to that? Why do we have your average citizen going down to the border who are more capable of defending it than Border Patrol because of policies that politicians pushed? Mm-hmm. And then here you've got a president who's ready to shut down government again just to get his way on illegal immigration. What is going on? Where we don't say, no, this is a problem. You know, I don't care who wants to live here. I think diversity is great. I love the food that comes out of Mexico. I want more immigrants to come in. But I don't think they should be doing it the wrong way. I don't think they should be doing it illegally. You know, what's different now from 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when people were shuffling in? We funneled them all into Liberty Island, and we got them processed into this country appropriately. Now, if we could do
the process has changed. You should. I mean, I've been looked at this before. I've even ordered the illegal immigration document to see what it takes legally, and it's more convoluted than the tax code.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you know what? There's a solution, though. There's a solution to the immigration problem on our southern border. There's nothing but land out there. Why not, if these people want to come into our country, why not just funnel them into a city made just for them at the border until they get their legal immigration status? Why not have them work off their legalities? You know, I mean, they can come in, they can build themselves a city, they can learn how to work here, how to communicate with Americans. You know, I know there's this whole debate about, you know, English only. I honestly think that's bull. You know, I think you're limiting yourself if you only want to know English. You know, but there is that whole standard that America doesn't have, that identity that America has lost. You know, there's a certain amount of embracing that has to go on for the little bit of culture that America does have for itself, and among that is English language, you know? And it's a shame that we want to sit here and say it's absolutely okay to not have to learn English. I mean, if I go to France, I'm at a loss because I don't know French. It behooves me to go and learn some French. I'll give you a case in point. When I was in Bolivia, I couldn't speak Spanish. But you know what? You bet your butt in one night I figured it out, because in the hospital I wanted a piece of darn chocolate cake, and the only way I was getting it is if I figured out how to say I want a piece of chocolate cake in Spanish. Okay?
Well, right. And historically speaking, you know, look, when you're talking about the Ellis Island thing, there's a whole other reality to that as well. I mean, my family line came into this country not through Ellis Island, as was romanticized at that time and all that. You know, one side of my lineage came here speaking Canadian French, but came originally from Ireland. The other side of my lineage came from Sicily, and that also was through Canada. They arrived here speaking Italian, but they sought to integrate themselves into the society at large. They actually did attempt to speak English. I think that speaking English in this country is something that we should actually have here. It's one of those things where, as you aptly point out, in other countries, you know, you couldn't get away with that if you were attempting to emigrate or even visit, generally speaking.
Yeah, fuck freedom and liberty. You gotta speak English, motherfuckers. I mean, come on, dude.
No, what I'm saying is no.
That's not saying that they can't speak Spanish or, I mean, whatever other language they want to speak. I mean, go to a nail salon, for crying out loud. But you know what? Those ladies learned how to speak Spanish so that they can conduct business here in America. It's sensibility. You know, if especially in our evolving culture where we are expanding to conducting business overseas, it's just common sense to back yourself up with a foreign language. That doesn't mean America can't have English as its identifying language. There's nothing wrong with that idea at all.
America is the only country that doesn't claim an identifying language. Why? Because of freedom and liberty.
Yeah.
Everyone else has a other countries have a declared language.
But maybe we need to make our phone menus longer then, because let's see, you can speak English, you can speak Spanish, you can speak Portuguese, you can speak Japanese, Chinese. I mean, where do we draw the line? Because all those people exist here, every last one of them. So, I mean, until we're going to accommodate them all, why are we going to choose one language?
I didn't say accommodate. I'm not a fan of putting... Here's the thing. If I run a business and most of my patrons are Spanish, I guess my thing would be in Spanish. But having the government do it, that's not something I'm talking about. The government doesn't have to appease every single person. They can run their systems the way they do, but somebody who's running a business, if most of their patrons are Spanish, their stuff's going to be in Spanish. If they're Portuguese, it's going to be in Portuguese. Why? Because freedom and liberty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I don't think that doesn't mean that, you know, whatever we have from a governmental standpoint has to cater to every single individual. That's in any state. I don't believe in any state. You know, if the government speaks one language, that's fine. I don't want to talk to them anyway, so I'd rather it all be in Portuguese. And I can say I don't understand it, and I'm not going to do any of it anyway.
Well, there you go.
You know, just change all the government stuff to a foreign language. That's what I say. Forget English. Most people who speak English, I'd rather they not know how to cooperate. I want freedom and liberty. Just go back. Just be a decent human being.
Well, at this rate, it's only a matter of time before we're speaking in acronyms anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. What language is that? LOL. I mean...
Yeah, LOL, BTW.
The next generation has this whole other language that they speak, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, do you remember when they were trying to, what was that language with the Ebonics? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody remember when they tried to push Ebonics?
Mm-hmm.
I remember my English teacher, who happened to be a black man, trying to teach us why Ebonics couldn't be an acceptable language, okay? And surprisingly, I was the only student in this class that was able to write out exactly what he was saying.
Quite frankly, I'm offended that they don't... I mean, I'm sorry I have to jump in, but I'm offended that they don't teach Klingon in public schools. No, that's just me.
Yeah, so... it's just, but either how. I mean, I get the point, but here's the deal: people do what they have to do. If I could move to Canada and earn 10 times as much money as I make now, and I can't provide for my family now, and everyone there speaks French, and I can find a place where I can work and do whatever, and I don't speak that much French, I'm going to do it. Now, if I have to speak French in order to do it, that's what I would do. So I don't think they have to cater to me. Unless it becomes necessary.
That's exactly what's going on here in America. There's a push to have Spanish workers anymore. You know, they're getting bonuses for hiring illegal immigrants. What does that say to the American people? How many of the American people can't get jobs still? I mean, when you look at the statistics of how many people are currently out of work, and we're trying to usher in all these illegal immigrants, and then we're offering bonuses to the companies to hire them, and then what kind of benefits are they going to get with it? They're probably going to get paid training. You know, they're going to get everything handed to them, and the rest of us are going to do what? We're going to still be jobless, you know, still be broke. And then what? What happens when we can't pay our bills and we have more foreclosures on homes? Are they going to be given to these illegal immigrants? I mean, those are questions that need to be brought to the table. Because what happens when, 5.5 million illegal immigrants trying to get in? Is that what number we're at right now?
I'm not buying that number.
So then the question begs, do we have an actual illegal immigration problem, or do we have a welfare problem?
Well, we already have a welfare problem. They say it's unconstitutional to require people to piss in a cup to get their welfare check, but just to get a job you need to do that, so what's the difference? When is it unconstitutional for me to get a job by pissing in a cup, but to get a welfare check I don't need to?
But I guess what I see a lot of times with the immigration thing, which I'm sure is a problem, but most people say, well, they're going to come in and they're going to get free stuff. Oh, I see. You don't have a problem with our country giving away free stuff to people who
not at all.
But you have it seems like our priorities are a little mixed up. These folks want to come in and work and provide for their family. They're not necessarily coming for free stuff, but free stuff is the catalyst that you're putting there. So you don't mind the free stuff that we give away to 49
can you really believe that about them all? Can you really believe that about them all? I mean, are you sitting here telling me that it's not on their mind that, America's giving away a bunch of free bonuses, all I got to do is cross this border?
No, I don't.
I mean, you really don't think that's in the back of their mind?
I know too many immigrants to believe that. See, but my difference is I don't talk about this topic from a hypothetical standpoint. I've worked in construction for 25 years. From day one, the day I started in construction at 17 years old, I knew illegal immigrants, and I've known illegal immigrants the entire 25 years I've been doing it. Okay, they don't come for free stuff. They come to work to provide for their family. Now, once they get here, and some have been here for generations, they learn how our system works, and they go, wow, look, this country gives free stuff away to people who do nothing. What a bunch of morons. But since they do...
I'm going to have to disagree on a certain level, though, because I happen to know construction myself. My husband's a general contractor, so yeah, we have gone and had the illegal immigrants that worked for us in the previous years, and I've seen the way they live here. And they get here, they get $10 an hour to work these construction jobs, and then they go into a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. They've got 12 people living in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. They pay maybe $50 a piece to pay their rent, and the rest they ship home. And then they live like kings. So,
sure.
I mean, I've seen it.
But they're not taking free stuff.
I don't know about that.
They're going in there working. They're those guys that you're talking
about. Maybe the men are.
I saw it back in the 80s. Well, yeah, women with children, now we've come to realize, but see, there we go. We don't have a problem with immigrants who are working. We have a problem with the welfare system that gives away free stuff. Do we have the same problem with the welfare system in America for Americans that give away free stuff that don't do work? Or is it solely on the backs of the illegal immigrants? They don't deserve it or whatever. I mean, it's still a welfare problem. Disguised
and I'm not even saying that they don't belong here. Like I said, I fully support immigration. I think it's great to have diversity, but there's a way to go about it. And when we have so many, and when we have so many opportunities for free stuff to be just shoveled out, it's like a gold mine.
Well, guys, listen.
It's temptation.
Okay, well, hold on a second. We only got about 6 minutes left, maybe 5. Okay, and in my opinion here about this debate, this is an interesting debate, and we could go around about this a bit. The thing is that, in my opinion, until we clean up our own house, we can't be inviting any guests, whether they were invited with a proper invitation or not. Okay, so this is the way I see the country and the immigration problem at this point. But that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, and of course we had an interesting discussion with Mr. Grayson. All of you guys, as soon as zeninthecar.com gets back up and running, we'll be able to see it, and everybody will be able to check out the articles and stuff over there. Of course, for now, Daniel, we're referring everybody to the fan page on Facebook, so they can keep track of what you guys are doing, right?
That's going to be the best place to go for right now. And I told you before we went on air tonight, I said, we'll talk about this, But with these guys, you never know where it's going. I mean, we started off with a police state and ended up with pissing in a cup.
You got it. And I can't thank you guys enough for having run that wide range there. I really appreciate it. And I'm telling you, we should do this again if you guys enjoyed it any. I'll be more than happy to do this another time. But I am just about out of time, because coming up next on UCY is going to be Kim, my wife. She's going to run a roundtable show. I hope you guys call in and everything like that. It's called Jaded. So everybody check that out. All right, and that's before I run out of time and my obnoxious bumper comes in. But I want you guys to take a minute and kind of sound off one at a time with these last couple of minutes. So I wonder if you would like to start, Sabrina?
Yeah, Sabrina Mergenthaler, Zen in the Car, article writer. Enjoy being here, otherwise loudmouth. Yeah, Jason.
And yep, Jason, if there's anything you want to kind of drop out there as the last word here.
Yeah, make sure you check out Sabrina's Divine in America. She writes some good articles. One right now, right there is, what's the title of that article, Sabrina? I am the cost of liberty, the exchange security. Yeah, that's a really good article that she just put out, the newest one so far. So keep up with that. And then anybody in Georgia, make sure you go down on the 13th to Lawrence County to the David Hooks rally. Grayson said he'll be there. That's a good thing. More on the militarized police state. They'll be speaking about that. And check out zenthecar.com.
Right, and another disgusting situation occurring, regardless of what you think the symptoms might have been that created this disease. There is definitely a disease of abuse in the system, and it needs to be addressed. So, Daniel, I wonder if you wanted to kind of cap it off from all the Zen in the Car people?
Well, Zen in the Car people. Join my cult, all of you people. Yeah, no. No, these guys are my family. They're my friends, and we've been doing this for a long time, and we've been doing this out of love, and we've been doing this because we believe in what we're doing. And, yeah, I do want everybody who's listening to go to divineamerica.blogspot.com. I want you to read everything that Sabrina has to say. I'm not sure she has a donate button, but if she does, donate. I know that you need to go to Operation Simple Request. That it's something that Jason has put together that I think is ingenious, and I know there's a donate button there, and please donate to that. I would ask you to go to operationeducate.me, which is Derek Grayson's page. Please read what he has to say, bookmark it, read all of that. Whenever zenthecar.com does come back up after we've been hacked so many times, subscribe to it and donate to it, and go to the Zen of the Car store. Something I haven't really promoted too much. But for the most part, take what all of us have said as a Socratic dialogue and pass it on to other people, spread it through social media. What you've heard here tonight is a collection of ideas from different perspectives and different walks of life, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that's what's going to win the revolution peacefully, is setting brush fires in the minds of men. And I want to everybody who did come on tonight and who couldn't come on tonight but was communicating with me through social media, I love you. Thank you for what you're doing. You're an integral part, and we're only going to grow from here on out. And I know that there's an open invitation for the next show. I think I'll join in. I hope Sabrina does. I hope Jason does, so you guys can continue your conversation about pissing in a cup, which I'd love to hear.
And we will continue that on the next, not the next one, but one of these times when we get a chance to get these people all back together again. I really appreciate it again, guys, and we're just about out of time. You've been listening to the Ochelli Effect on UCY.TV radio, and I really appreciate everybody who tuned in, everybody that joined in. And yeah, I am sorry to Jason Turner that we couldn't quite get you on, but we will try that again, sir. Do appreciate it, and regardless of whether I agreed with you guys or didn't agree with you guys, I think that we had a useful conversation here, and hopefully we have done exactly what you said, Daniel, which is to light some fires in the brush fire minds of the listener and get them to start to think for themselves, to be themselves, and of course to embrace the freedom that we still do have a chance at possessing. So, I don't know if there's a last word there, Daniel, but you go ahead if you want to throw one more out there.
Oh, no, man.
Sorry, there it goes. Everybody have a good night. Stay tuned for Jaded next. Bye.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
See, but I have the files. You know, I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, you know, pistols and fondle slab of choice, I don't know, computers, internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't